Welcome to Arena Showcase Showdown, a series that's unlike other wrestling review shows because we aren't looking at the matches or moments that made up these events. Instead, we're comparing the WWF versus WCW in terms of visual aspects that created the atmospheres, not only in the arenas, but also for the home television presentations, from the stage areas to ring designs, the graphic packages, and beyond. On this episode, we take a look at the pay-per-view events that made up the year 1998 as we place WWF and WCW head-to-head. Before we start, let me take a brief moment to ask you to please subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. If I get more subscribers, likes, and comments, it lets me know that you enjoy what you're seeing, and it encourages me to create more of this content. Thank you guys for the support. This channel has been around for many years, and while it may not be the biggest, I truly do appreciate the solid fan base. Let's get going. What better way to start out the year than with the Royal Rumble, one of my all-time favorite pay-per-views, or whatever they're called these days, and that's exactly what the WWF did in 1998 when the event hit the San Jose Arena in, you guessed it, San Jose, California on January 18th with 18,542 fans in attendance. Promotional posters for the Rumble featured Stone Cold Steve Austin's head with a bunch of nails sticking out of it and the show's logo on a crumpled piece of paper, which is, of course, nailed to Mr. Austin's cranium. WCW's 1998 opener would be Sold Out, appearing here in its second iteration on January 24th. This one would host 5,486 fans at the Hara Arena in Dayton, Ohio, so right around a quarter of what the Royal Rumble attendance was. It wasn't uncommon at the time for WCW to frequent smaller venues for its lesser pay-per-view events, so the attendance should come as no surprise here. Heading over to the advertising, it's a tad more simplified, with the event logo appearing over a background consisting of flames and the tagline, "Hell hath no fury like WCW NWO Sold Out. First Fight 98. Who do you trust?" Taking a closer look at the logos, we see the second generation version of the Royal Rumble logo, which has been used for a couple years at this point, appearing here in red, blue, and yellow. But we also get an alternate version, which we will see a lot during the broadcast. This is the black and white paper version, which we saw on the poster. Now, Sold Out started in 1997 as an NWO pay-per-view, and while that logo was different than this version, it feels like this one pays homage to its roots, with the words appearing almost like spray paint that's dripping down. Over at the stage, we'll start with the Rumble. This circular entryway would be used a lot this year, and to me it was felt a bit underwhelming when compared to the massive set design that they were using for Raw is War at the time. The lack of any sort of video screen makes it feel a bit bare. I do really like the lights here though, they bring a lot of depth to the design, and of course we see that alternate version of the event logo hung right above the entry curtain. It is slightly elevated, so there's sort of this mini ramp leading down to the floor. Many other shows that used versions of this design feature it off to the side a bit, not facing the ring head on, but here it's a straight shot from the ramp to the ring. And Sold Out is a very good example of how simple can look good. I mean, this one is essentially just a video wall with a large backdrop behind it displaying projected logos on it. This backdrop alone really adds mass to this area, as from a distance you can really see its presence. It just feels grand despite its simplicity. We see a black elevated stage with a large ramp heading down to the floor and lights not only surrounding the bottom of the design but also high above. I have to say, WCW's lighting game was spot on during this era, as was their pyro. Both of these just look fantastic here. They even snuck this WCW structure in over here to the side, which is only seen at certain angles. Not really quite sure why it's there. It kind of looks like an afterthought, but there it is. This venue also has a very unique roof, and with the smaller size, it can easily be seen during entrances, something that I remember with a lot of WCW's pay-per-views during this era. Down at the ring for the old Federation, we see aprons containing the colored version of the Rumble logo with matching WWF logos on both sides. And this carries over to all four sides of the ring, where black ringside padding surrounds on the outside floor, accompanied with black steps. The ringside barriers here are the classic steel variant, finished off in black as well. Inside the ring, we see all red ropes with black turnbuckle pads featuring the WWF logo and a light-covered canvas to finish things off. Over at Sold Out, we see a ring pretty much void of all color besides that Snickers logo there. That's one thing WCW did that set them apart from the competition, the ring canvas logos. I've always been a fan of them from an aesthetic standpoint, but I've heard they could sometimes cause traction issues in the ring, which is probably not good from a performance standpoint. Nevertheless, I love the way it looks here, especially given the cool design of the logo itself. Ring posts, steps, ropes, and turnbuckle pads are all black here, and the ringside padding nearly replicates the gray tone of the ring canvas perfectly. The aprons are sort of a muted blue, almost gray, which overall makes this entire design here quite the opposite of the darker tones over at the Rumble. Looking at graphics for the Rumble, we see lower thirds comprised of black, gray, and pops of red with white font, and the black and white logo is used here as well. Most of the graphics for the event simply fade into appearance, with the exception of the opening information being animated with the logo uncrumpling and the font filing in last. We also see this double feature graphic, which is very blue and sort of generic. It feels like maybe they just had this one lying around and decided they wouldn't need to make one to match the rest of the show graphics. But we will see some inconsistencies like this throughout the year, more commonly with WWF. Speaking of, while most of the show features the block logo, we see the scratch logo appearing at the bottom corner of the screen. Sold Out features some pretty nice looking graphics. I especially like these lower thirds that look a bit like weathered paper, and while they appear a bit bare here for commentary, we see larger font used for wrestler introductions, and of course the show logo appearing to the left. These also feature start and finish animations, unlike the WWF's offerings, which is an effect you'll notice frequently with WCW in this series that sets the two promotions apart from one another. Keeping with the theming of the logo, we see this hand with a can of spray paint used during transitions going in and out of replays, which is pretty unique. I can also really appreciate the closing credits utilizing the same graphical designs as everything else here. And just for the hell of it, let's take a look at some of the fine fans in attendance for these events. At the Rumble, we've got the ever so common Nitro Sucks sign. Hold on, what? He's wearing a Four Horsemen shirt? Tyson killed Tupac. Okay, interesting allegation. Sold Out isn't without its own unique attendees. This guy is holding a Snickers because this guy's shirt actually says tits on it. And both shows have Tyson references for the night. This guy is crotch chopping his fellow audience members. Looks like he's had one too many. And man, Bagwell had great heat during this time. Lots of signs bashing him here. And well, that wraps up things for January. Let's head over to see what February has to offer. All right. The first No Way Out, officially titled No Way Out of Texas in Your House, would hit the Compaq Center in Houston, Texas on February 15th with 16,110 attendees. Continuing in the promotional style we saw for the Rumble, this one features a lone superstar close-up, this time from the front, and this one being Kane. We see the Western Union logo, event logo, and details, and a small feature of the album WWF The Music Volume 2, which I remember buying from Tower Records on release day because I was just such a super fan. One of the WCW big ones is arguably Super Brawl, with the 8th consecutive event taking place on February 22nd, coming from the Cow Palace in San Francisco, California. 12,620 fans would attend this Super Brawl, making it quite the jump in attendance when compared to Sold Out. The poster for this event really showcases the main event match of the night, which is the Sting vs. Hogan rematch after the debacle that was Starrcade 97. The logo is here, pictures of the two wrestlers are front and center, and the time and place is included as well. Taking a more detailed look at the No Way Out logo, it's sort of Hulkamania-like in a way. Red and yellow font, sketched out lettering, it's kind of cool, albeit a bit simple. We also see the block WWF logo here, and in some instances it's accompanied by the In Your House branding, which was sort of starting to disappear by '98. The Super Brawl logo has always resonated with me. It just feels so big time. It sort of looks like a Super Bowl logo and can even be compared to like the classic WrestleMania logos. I love the use of Roman numerals. I like the gradient fade from red to yellow. And to finish things off, the NWO logo was integrated here for the first time in the event's history, which is something we would see a lot of for the entire year here. They were really pushing the NWO as its own brand at this point since it was growing so big. Well, this stage is definitely unique. The promotion at this time had embraced a very industrial feel, and it shows with designs like this. There are steel structures, chain link fences, barbed wire, oversized desk lamps, and this one is rather large for '98, I will say. I guess it's quite fitting for a show named No Way Out, which is displayed atop the entrance curtain but is sort of hard to spot because, and I don't know if this is by design, but this one is sort of poorly lit. Then again, the WWF arenas are always a bit dark during this era. Not quite sure if WCW was trying to take a page out of the WWF handbook for entrance areas here, but this one just sort of has a Federation feel to it. The way it sits directly on the arena floor, the steel structures, including this cool triangular design, the event logo above the entry curtain, and the way that it sits off to the side, requiring wrestlers to veer off to the right in order to line up with the walkway down to the ring. At which point we see video screens stretching pretty far from left to right, which is a rather unique look for the time. There is red carpet all over the place, like everywhere, finishing off the look here. Down at the ring area, we see the In Your House aprons. These were commonly used for the event during '96-'97, but with the addition of subnames like No Way Out branding here, it would have been nice to see something tying that name into the design. Everything else is commonplace for '98, lots of black, pop of red, and bam, there you go. We see the oh-so-gray design return here for WCW, but we get a much-needed pop of color for this one, coming from the logo on the ring mat and the turnbuckle pads, which appear here in red and yellow, brother. I'd also like to point out that the WWF would use black ring barriers during this time while WCW used silver. Just another example of how these two giant promotions were very different. We see this design for No Way Out sticking to the event color scheme of red and yellow. Names are displayed in white font over this boomerang-like design, which is flipped around for different occasions. We once again see a build-in and out effect for the show open, but nowhere else is this used during the event. This time the double feature screen is a bit more suitable for the theming, featuring lots of red with bricks and chain link fencing in the background. We also see this alternate split screen view, which is even more themed to the rest of the visuals, featuring the show logos and color scheme. Matchup screens follow suit, as does the closing graphic. Very nice. The WCW graphics from this era are always so nicely done. They tend to have a cleaner, more professional look to them, in my opinion. Yours may vary. Here we see names in this orange font with additional information appearing in white, dropping in after the appearance of the Super Brawl logo. This same font can be seen for the commentary team and elsewhere, such as the opening. WCWWrestling.com. Wait, that's odd because the last W in WCW already stands for wrestling, so it's World Championship Wrestling, wrestling.com. Okay. Transitions in and out of replays feature this nitro-like explosion, and the show closes once again with a really nicely done credits screen. Heading back to No Way Out, we find a lone Jeff Jarrett fan. There's got to be at least one or two others out there. The Confederate flag during the nation's entrance just doesn't really hold up. That's not a good look. Surprisingly, not much else going on here. Gotta love all the goofy-ass WCW fans raising the roof. That's always fun to see. This was many years before the whole Daniel Bryan yes movement in WWE, but was almost as annoying. Jeez, a disposable camera. I almost forgot those were a thing. And tons of hatred for La Parka here. Holy crap. And that's it for No Way Out and Super Brawl. Let's move it along to the March pay-per-view events. Kicking things off here for WWF is the big one, WrestleMania. Taking place on March 29th with just over 19,000 fans packing the Fleet Center in Boston, Mass. There were a couple of different promo posters for this one, but the most memorable and commonly seen would feature Austin, Tyson, and Michaels with the event logo above them and an all-black background. Details about the event are displayed at the bottom in white. Uncensored would take place on March 15th with 7,475 attendees at the Mobile Civic Center in Mobile, Alabama. I think it's Mobile. Rules are for fools. This was the tagline for the event and can be seen on the event advertising located on the visually isolated arm of one Hollywood Hogan. Typical information is below. The event logo, rather small here, is appearing just above the arm. This one's just kind of weird, I don't know. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this is one of my favorite WrestleMania logos. It's in the classic font, but stacked instead of a cross and cubed up, sort of like an N64 logo. And this one is brought to us by X-Rated, but not the rapper, I don't believe. Back at WCW, we see what is another one of my favorite logos, mimicking those classic ransom letters you've seen in the movies. It could definitely benefit from a pop of color, but nonetheless, very cool. Sunglass emoji levels of cool. As I mentioned earlier, we will see this stage design a bit in 1998, and by a bit I mean a lot. But it's just a shame that they used it for WrestleMania, which should always stand out from every other show that the year has to offer. Sure, it has a WrestleMania plaque hanging above, but other than that, it's pretty much the same as many other pay-per-view events. As I said it before, I'm going to say it again. Despite its simplicity here, the lighting looks really nice. This one sits off to the side, with wrestlers making a slight turn to head down to the ring, passing by a stage area which was used for the DX band during Triple H's entrance. Oh, and I love that we get a little glimpse of the walk into gorilla position, something we will see a bit more of in later events. This design here is similar to Sold Out from earlier in the year, only you can see without that big backdrop, it changes things quite a bit. The entire stage area feels marginally smaller thanks to that black curtain. We do see the addition of those backlit uncensored signs, and while I can appreciate the inclusion of some color, it does look a bit dated, like some sort of 70s motel sign. I don't know if that's what they're going for. We also get the event logo above and center with plenty of lighting all around. Speaking of lighting, this one is rather dark when compared to many of the promotion's other events for the year. Making our way back down to the ring, it's all pretty much black and red here, and it looks fantastic. Black aprons with red WrestleMania logos, and red ropes with black turnbuckle pads and posts, and black padding outside, and yeah, it's awesome. In the WCW ring, we see much of the same in terms of the shows that preceded this one for the year. Obvious change would come at the ring mat, which now dons the uncensored logo, and a much appreciated addition of red turnbuckle pads brings a little life to the otherwise very subtle design. You know, it may not be my first choice with all the gray, but I will say that they pulled it off, and again, it's just nice to see something so different than what the WWF were doing. This graphics package is pretty neat and clean, if I might say so myself, with semi-transparent backdrops trimmed with black used for lower thirds, featuring the cubed logo to the left and throwing in some shades of gold, giving it that prestigious Mania feel. This design carries over to matchup screens and dual feed segments as well. Though I have to say this double feature design here sort of reminds me of one of those 90s promotional VHS tapes for the latest tech software or something. But hey, this was the 90s. These transitions are mighty swell as well, with the cube logo swiping across the screen. The lower thirds for Uncensored feature a similar font as the logo, with a more colorful palette, and the event logo which scales in and out for transitions. Other transitions, such as coming in and out of replays, feature this really cool scrambled TV effect. And we go off the air with a commercial for next month's event, Spring Stampede. Tons of Austin stuff here in the crowd, from 316 shirts to those foam middle fingers. I love how people in the late 90s still look like they were stuck in the 80s. Of course, we see a ton of NWO merch. It's funny, I remember buying this VHS in 2002 or so, and I still remember this sign very vividly. It's always stood out to me for some reason. Not much else here, kind of a boring crowd. Sorry, Mobile, or wherever we are. So let's move things along. WWF Unforgiven in Your House hit the Greensboro Coliseum Complex in Greensboro, North Carolina on April 26, 1998, in front of 21,427 attending fans. Keeping with the advert style that we've seen most of the year, we see a lone superstar, this one being The Undertaker as the focal point of this one. The logo is present with information located at the bottom, and the show is presented by 10321, which, fun fact, became 10-10-321 just a few months later in July. WCW Spring Stampede would see 7,428 fans at the Denver Coliseum in Denver, Colorado on April 19th. The biggest, the baddest, no bull would be the tagline for this year's Stampede, with a picture of a bull on the promo material. Now, if you were a non-wrestling fan, you'd probably have no idea that this was an ad for a wrestling event, but then again, I don't think that they were aiming at that demo, but who knows. The logo is a bit gothic, fitting the theme of the show, which features the very first ever Inferno match. The Spring Stampede logo is both simplistic, yet very clean and of quality. It gets the point across. This is like a Western event. This is an interesting set design here. From a distance, it just sort of looks like some sort of zombie apocalypse had hit the Federation. It features event signage atop and lots of mossy camouflage type of stuff. What is this stuff called? I think I've seen hunters draped in this stuff. The entire thing isn't well lit at all, and while it's a bit bizarre, I give them props for not just reusing the circular design once again. Off to the side, we see a stage setup for the Double J concert, which is considerably larger than the entrance area itself. So not only did they design and build a giant barn facade complete with video walls on both sides, but they brought in all sorts of props like wagon wheels, bales of hay, old wood fences, and even a carriage. Wrestlers enter from functioning barn doors, passing under longhorns and the event logo, which is front and center. The backdrop consists of projected images of mountains with a setting sun, and based on the location, I'm guessing these might be the Rockies. The ring. Well, it's one we will see a lot here in '98. The aprons read World Wrestling Federation on the front and back sides, with the WWF scratch logo appearing here for the first time on the opposite sides of the apron. We see the return of red ropes, and the classic WWF logo is still on black turnbuckle pads. Nice and inconsistent. Outside, we see black posts, padding, and barriers. And it should come as no surprise that the WCW ring features the same look we've seen thus far for '98, but the yellow accents in both the turnbuckle pads and event logo on the mat look really good here. This is one of the cleaner designs for 98, though the placement of the event logo appears a bit off for some reason. I like the uniform colors here, and for the first time this year, we see opening transitions for lower thirds, which is always cooler than just having them appear out of nowhere. Double feature screens add a pop of purple, and the cross featured in the promotional material. These lower thirds are really Western and take up a large portion of the screen. I really like the way the logo looks here. And look how this boot comes in and kicks the logo up into the corner of the screen. That's fun stuff. Oh, and for the commentary team, we see these little icons appear on the screen before the names, which again is fun. There's even an appearance by a cactus over at the internet booth. Lots of snot-nosed kids here flipping birds and holding up inappropriate signs. Like, where are your parents? It's always funny to look back at the anti-Bischoff signs at the WWF events, as well as the anti-Vince signs at WCW shows. Lots of Goldberg signs here. This was like right before his peak. Lots of Nash stuff too. He was starting to beef with Hogan and becoming very popular here. That's pretty cool. Not much else to see here. For May of 1998, WWF would hold the Over the Edge In Your House pay-per-view event in the Wisconsin Center Arena in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with 9,822 fans attending. Flyers for the show would feature Ken Shamrock yelling and snapping ankles, complete with the show logo and the sponsor's logo, Castrol GTX. Slamboree. This one would beat out WWF in attendance with 11,592 fans hitting the Centrum in Worcester, Mass on May 17th. The strong survive, the ruthless win. This is the tagline featured on the promotional material, with a smeared image of Macho Man dropping the elbow. The logo for this year would primarily be used with a red color scheme, but we see the classic blue and yellow variant here. Over the WWF Edge, that's what it looks like it says here. We see red block lettering, smaller white font over the top, black backdrop. It's pretty simplistic. This is the black and red version of the event logo featuring the classic cursive font. I've always been a fan of this one. Let's talk about this set design because, well, just look at it. It quite literally looks like a junkyard. There are beat-up old cars all over the place, with some even forming an arch just past the entry curtain. We see streetlights providing a much brighter look here, and the event logo at the curtain. This is another one of those zigzag paths with the bent aisle from the stage down to the ring. And of course, when you have a design like this, you have to incorporate it into a match, which, not gonna lie, is pretty fun. The stage here is basically a giant Slamboree logo, and by basically, I mean it is just a giant Slamboree logo. Now, I've heard a lot of mixed feelings about this one, and while I wasn't huge on it back in the day, it's grown on me quite a bit. I only wish it would have had some sort of video wall. The use of functioning doors which open for wrestler entrances is a nice touch. The large backdrop helps to add depth and color, and the lighting is plentiful here, making it one of the clear focal points of the arena. Red carpet follows the stage down the ramp and to the ring. We see the same WWF ring as last month, with the exception of them finally updating those old turnbuckle pads with new ones containing the scratch logo. This one appears a lot like previous months, with red turnbuckle pads to match the event logo displayed on the ring mat. We also see 10 3-2-1 logos on the corners of the ring mat, but it's weird they aren't anywhere else on the show, not in the open, not on the promo material or the internet booth, or anywhere really. It's interesting. These lower thirds feature the event color scheme of red, white, and black, and while these WWF graphics from '98 can sometimes be a bit busy, these ones find a good, healthy balance. It's just a shame that they don't feature any transition animations. Dual screen graphics are similar, though the backgrounds are quite distorted from the lower res images being stretched. I like how this little hand comes and slaps the Slamboree logo into place, like, get up there. This one is very red. Red logo, red backing, but the white font pops nicely because of this. and white font is all we see for commentary, which were almost always more simplified for WCW. This screen is a bit, it's very blue, which is quite the opposite of red, and feels like a last-minute throw-in. That hand logo combination is also used for certain screen transitions. These guys are committed. They even had their friend play a blank space between the two words and made him sit down. Mr. McMahon is fat. Okay, Vince McMahon has been a lot of things, but I can guarantee fat has never been one of them. Here we have a young Jerry Lawler sitting behind Jerry Lawler. Wannabe Wrestling Federation. Ouch, what a burn. How will they ever heal that wound? For June of 1998, WWF would feature the King of the Ring from the Civic Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on June 28th, with just over 17,000 in attendance. The poster for the event was quite evident that this wasn't our father's WWF anymore, with a bloody guillotine, a leather-bound sable, and the tagline, "Off with their heads." The good old wholesome Great American Bash. Baltimore Arena would host the event on June 14th in front of 12,810 fans. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, tradition bites. The new American pastime. Geez, that just seems like really long. That's a really long-winded tagline. Maybe we could have simplified that a bit. The advertising doesn't do the brand any justice, with the only reference to wrestling being a tiny logo and two blurry wrestlers. Taking a closer look at the logo, and we can see that the classic design is gone, with this one appearing more menacing, more edgy than the previous iteration. And love this logo. It's very traditional looking. It's one that if WCW were still around today, I'd love to see still in use. Another month, another familiar looking set design. This one being used a few times by this point, and speaking of points, they did add a slight addition to the circular structure in the form of these triangular lighting displays. Other than that, the only other unique aspect here would be the King of the Ring logo. And we keep coming back to outdated things here, and I just wanted to point out the classic WWF logo and old school Taker blow up outside of the arena. At this point, both had since changed quite a bit. And from one extreme to another, take a moment to look at this stage. Seriously, no need to ask what event this is, it's very apparent. There are, count 'em, 3 giant American flags, multiple video walls, side and center, a giant cutout of the event logo, and lighting everywhere. Add to this a solid red floor and projection displays, and it's plain to see that WCW saw the value in stage presence. The ring is another unchanged design we'd see here, and you know what? Why not? It's working, it looks good, and getting new skirts made up for each and every event is probably costly, so I can't blame them. We do see the Hell in a Cell raised high above the ring. I'm not really sure why. There may have been a match utilizing it here on this night. I don't know. There is another one of those WCW ring mats that not only features the event logo on the center, but the sponsor's logo in all 4 corners. Other than that and the accented red turnbuckle pads, everything else returns as we saw from the previous events. I like these lower thirds a lot, actually. They match the logo damn near to a T and aren't overproduced like many of them were for the year. These, on the other hand, haven't aged too well, but they looked fine for the time. Matchup screens are nice, as are the dual feed graphics. Honestly, the Fed is starting to step up their game by mid-98, so props to them. Graphics here consist of lots of red, white, and blue. Not my favorite of designs for WCW, but not necessarily bad. I do like the transitions, but I have to say I'm really not a fan of this. We see it here for commentary as well as the opening. Very early 90s looking in my opinion. Not hating though, okay? Calm down. Typical night in the WWF audience. Plenty of sexual innuendos here. Suck it, lick it, I want head, Sable 469, all that good, healthy teenage boy stuff. The WCW fans were a bit more subdued during this time, but that probably has to do more with what was allowed in these arenas versus a WWF show. With that being said, there was this sign. And these guys, who I'm pretty sure were not seated together, but looked an awful lot alike. And these are plants, right? Like, these women aren't really here to watch WCW, are they? Giant is a big, fat, stinky idiot. Sign of the night for sure. That's the winner right there. I have to say, Maryland had quite the active gathering tonight.